when He enlightened my mind that there is more to it than doing all the rituals, the routine of walking in the faith, in my Christianity. So I felt that time until when I entered UP, little did I know on hindsight, in a secular school like that, that I will find Christ in it, because as it is always in the Bible, He shall have well springs of water, rivers of water flowing even in the desert. And to think, if you are in UP, which is a secular college, and me seeking after some spiritual guidance, how would I know that Campus Crusade will be so active there? Then a good friend of mine, who's also in the pre-dentistry program, shared the gospel with me. 4 Spiritual Laws, a tiny booklet that changed my life. I cried tears of joy because I had been searching 4 years in my high school for that thing to fill up the void in me, where I can just find rest and not to be doing anything just to appease some higher being, or wanting to escape hell or whatever punishment is coming. So UP was the place where I found Christ. In other words, never underestimate where God works. We may think it's the desert, but there He can also dig a wellspring, a fountain of joy that will last till today. And then, when I got to dentistry, the only thing I missed was to be planted in a spiritual family, which I didn't have, and which at that time I thought, in my simple thinking, it was sufficient to have found the true religion, the true Christ, and that meant a lot to me. And I thought that I'm fine, that I don't need a spiritual family. But sometimes I feel, at that time I said, oh, being a Christian means you're having a personal relationship with Christ. So it's personal, it's one-on-one. So I don't need other people or be part of any spiritual family. But I didn't know that when the storms of life come, no matter how strong you are, you need other members of the family, because I am just a part of a body. I'm not the whole body. And so I realized that I do need other people to support me. But it was years before I learned my lesson. And during those times of being alone and had to face my own crisis, my marriage crisis, I realized that I wasn't really alone. It was really hard, but I had the Bible with me. And maybe that's when I took every word in that book to heart. That's when I mentioned before, it's that the Bible is my bubble bath.
Can you explain that?
Bubble bath, because it's whenever I go to that book, my whole being just immersed in it, and the bubbles are letters, alphabets in that Bible. And even though I don't understand it, being a student of dentistry, I said, by law of diffusion, its truth, its love shall diffuse into my inner being. And so, little by little, I learned that all I need to do is just to open up. I don't have to understand everything, but along the way, God graciously gives you the understanding whenever you're willing to just open your heart and mind. Understanding comes much later. Much later. What He requires of you is just your heart. and just let him be the one to work on it. And that's how he worked on me. And that's how he worked on me. And although, of course, it was not easy to go through my marriage crisis alone, but it gave me the strength knowing that there's something still in store. I might think it's the end of the world because it's the end of your marriage, but life is not just that. And if I think about it, it's still such a small price to pay. If I have to pay at the price of a broken marriage or a strayed husband, I don't mind paying that same price to experience the intimacy I have with Christ today. Such a small price to pay. So am I willing to go through the same thing again, to experience this kind of intimacy? Without hesitation, I shall say yes, because what's my pain compared to the pain that he suffered for me?
And as a dentist, when during the time of your crisis, you gave up your dentistry career, right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
When it came to a point when I felt I couldn't just do this by myself, I had to come back to where my family, my parents are, so I can have the moral and emotional support, and also for my son to experience the love of an extended family. There was one time when I first arrived in the Philippines, I didn't know where we would live. We don't have a home. And then I don't even know where money would come from. So we just stayed in a one-room studio apartment. And one day, while I'm having just my son and myself having dinner, and he said, "Mommy, my life has changed." And all of a sudden I was felt so apprehensive, and I thought, oh no, he must have known that, the family is gone. It's no longer complete. It's broken. I put down my bowl and I just couldn't eat. And I said, "What do you mean, son, that your family has changed?"
Your life has changed.
Yeah. And my son said, he said, "Mom, my family has changed." Then I said, "What do you mean, son?" And he said, "Because I thought it's just you and me and Dad. I didn't know I have such a big family. I have grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunties, cousins." And all of a sudden, that apprehension, that cloud just lifted, because imagine how God can enable a child's perspective to look so different from us adults. Sometimes we fear too much, we worry too much, we focus on the negative. We think we're adults, we've seen it all, and we focus on the seriousness or gravity of something that's so unpleasant. But the Lord can put such a different perspective in my son and see the good thing. And he sees it differently. He didn't see the brokenness of the family, but he saw the family grew even bigger.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was so shocked. I said, "It must be you, Lord, because how can my words ever change the way my son looks at things?" That's how it is. So I was so surprised when he said that. And then I said, "Okay, what am I gonna do? All I know is how to be a dentist." And at that time when I first moved back, I was still thinking, maybe I should look for a clinic or work as a partner or some established dental office. While I was still making my plans in my mind and thinking, then my son said, Mom, one evening while we were watching TV, and he said, Mom, can you do me a favor? I said, what? Of course I can. You're my son. Then he said, can you not leave me with the yaya like how you did in Hong Kong? And I said, oh, why? Can you raise me? Then, yeah, I was almost in tears. Then I said, how can I say no? But little did my son realize that in my mind I'm trying to set up a practice again, because I'd been wanting to be a dentist at 7, and I had a very good practice in Hong Kong for 20 years, and to give it all up and not do any, and to have done so well in the board exam
You
in the
were number 2.
Philippines. Yes. And then in Hong Kong, they only have limited numbers at that time. There wasn't dental school. There was no dental school in Hong Kong. And so every year, there's a quota. They will only accept 6 from the Philippines. And I passed the Hong Kong board,
Wow.
being a foreigner, competing against the local Hong Kong students who also studied in UP. And I got in.
Wow.
You see, I realized that God can give me everything and He can take it away, and it is His right to take it away, including my dentistry, including my marriage,
Oh, wow.
everything, because He is God.
And how do you process that?
Well, you can never outgive Him, because He will make sure that what He gets from you will always be less than what He can give. Exactly the way when we give our own life, He gave His own Son, and it's always more than what we can give. We can give up.
When you say He has outgiven you, what do you think God has given you?
At the end of the day, I'm so glad that when my son said, can you raise me by yourself? Then I said, okay. Then I said, oh Lord, if I'm gonna raise him, where will the money come from? No more income. You see, His ways are truly higher, because I never, talk about monthly allowance my husband should give, or never demanded anything. Never talk about alimony, because we didn't really get divorced. Nothing. But the Lord touched his father's heart, and He was the one who provided. I was even thinking of saying, Zach, where shall I put Zach to a school in the Philippines? Where will it be? Any Chinese, local Chinese school, maybe in Chinatown or whichever. I cannot outgive him, because he touched the Father's heart. And ever since he started in Brent, and then in British school. From thinking of putting him in a local Chinese school in Chinatown or some other small school, because I need to live within my means, and I have to raise my son and not be a dentist anymore. The Lord says, no, your son shall go to an international school. That's already one example. How can I outgive him? I never imagined my son will go to international schools. After Brent, it's British school. And I can't even imagine he'll go to the States.
And study there.
Yes. See, it's always more than I gave up.
How about your dentistry, is that what you call it? Dentistry practice?
Yeah, dental practice.
Dental practice. So it meant a lot to you from when you were a child, and then you did so well with it. And
Yes.
what's that process like, giving it up?
You know, when you, as I put my heart into raising my son, especially when I told myself I shall raise him according to the ways of the Lord, really it was all biblical parenting. Every time when I discipline him, I will, after disciplining him physically, I will bring him and sit down and go to the Bible verse that will point out what he has done wrong. And then, so I realized that it's something, the spiritual guidance is what money cannot buy. Even if I were a dentist and I'll have the money, I don't think I can have such spiritual influence on my son's growing years, which really impacted his spiritual walk right now on his own in the States. Because then, when I look back, I didn't know I laid the foundation years before to see him today going to church on his own, you know, and really enjoying the church where he's attending now in Atlanta, Georgia. And another thing is, every time he'll say, "Mom," the words whenever he say, "Mom, thank you for raising me." I could not imagine that day, that time when he was 7, when he asked if I had said no, I will have not heard these words, "Thank you for raising me," because that time I would have chosen dentistry. But no. And one time on Mother's Day, on Father's Day, and anyway, both, he sent me Happy Mother's Day. On Father's Day, he also sent me a card. Says, "Thank you for being both to me." So that was something you will not hear, or I will not hear, if I have chosen dentistry to continue.
That's interesting though. You wanted to be a dentist when you were 7, and he asked you at 7 when he was 7.
Yes,
you can raise
exactly.
him. That was his dream naman for you.
Yes.
Can you give an encouragement for solo parents?
You know, solo parents are very blessed, even though you may find that, "Oh, Lillian, you must be kidding," or something must be wrong with you. You know why we are so blessed? Because we have that kind of intimacy that others may not experience. When you have so many earthly affections that you are blessed with, affection from your husband who's always with you, affection from some relatives, a big family, they can distract you and it clouds the depth of God's love for you. But when all this has been stripped away, all these earthly affections, and you are seeking for some affection, that's when you notice that God has been standing there the whole time. But you just don't see it because all these human affections are right before him, clouding your vision to see beyond these human affections. And he was standing behind. So you will see him so clearly. Sometimes I really imagine that he's dancing with me in my mind, to the point that at times when I'm riding the bus going to work, when I was still in Hong Kong all alone, I can feel him. And I said, "I know I'm the apple of your eye." It reminds me of how John says, the apostle whom Jesus loved, he won't say it's himself. And I always tell my friends, I'm the apple of God's eye. And they might think that it's being boastful. But when I read about John, then I realized he's not being boastful. I can relate, because it's just that he's so blown away by Jesus' love for him. As I am, I feel that in everything I'm his favorite. Even when you're solo, you're a solo parent, but you are God's favorite. Not many people can experience that to the point you can say to yourself, you are the apple of His eye. He's the lover of your soul. And when you're able to say it, it's because out of the overflow of your heart, the mouth speaks. Yes.
Amen.